There are plants you can grow on the land you already have that will pay you every single season for the rest of your working life. Not because they are rare or exotic, because the people who need them cannot grow them themselves, and the people already growing them have understood something important. Silence is the best part of the strategy. When fewer people know, fewer people plant. When fewer people plant, the price holds. And for the farmers who figured this out first, that quiet has been worth more than any advertisement ever could. I have a neighbor 2 miles down this road who works a quarter acre that could not grow vegetables, drainage too poor, shade too heavy. He tried the conventional approach for 2 seasons and gave up. Then he planted something else entirely, something most farmers in this county would walk past without a second glance. 11 years later, he has 3 buyers who arrive every October and pay without negotiating. No website, no farmer's market table, no mention of it at the feed store. Just a piece of ground most people would write off, producing something most people have never thought to grow. I asked him once why he never talks about it. He said the fewer people who know, the better the price stays. I understood that. I also think there is a point where something worth knowing deserves to be passed along to someone who is ready to use it. That is what today is. 12 of these plants, starting with the ones you can act on right now, working toward the one that commands the highest price per pound of anything legal you can grow in American soil. Stay for that last one. It is not what most people would guess, and it may already be growing on land you own right now. My name is Elias. I farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and I have spent most of my working life paying attention to what the people around me who do well actually grow. If this kind of plain farm thinking is what you come here for, hit subscribe and turn on the bell. It is free, it takes 1 second, and a lot of good people are already here. If you have never grown calendula, here is what surprises people the first time. You cut the flower. You expect the plant to slow down, the way most things do after giving you something. Calendula does the opposite. It reads the cut as a signal and sets another bud where the flower was, then another. A single row of 20 plants, given a decent summer, can be harvested twice a week from July until the frost ends it. It is one of the most generous plants I know of. It is not fussy about soil. Full sun and reasonable drainage are about all it asks. Direct sow the seeds in spring after your last frost, or even a few weeks before, because it can handle a light chill. It self-seeds at the end of the season so reliably that you often do not need to buy seed again after the first year. Let a few plants go to seed and watch what comes up the following spring. Soap makers, salve makers, and herbal apothecaries buy the dried petals steadily, and fresh-cut bundles move well at farmers' markets all season long. It is the kind of crop that earns quietly while you are doing everything else. Elderberry is a plant that grows where you are not already using the land, the wet corner where the drainage is poor, the edge of the field where nothing else takes hold, the strip along the fence that collects shade. That is exactly where an elderberry shrub is comfortable, and once it settles in, it will be there for 25 years without asking much of you. The shrub blooms in late spring with flat-topped clusters of small white flowers that smell faintly sweet. The berries follow in August and September, hanging in dark purple clusters heavy enough to bend the branches. One thing to know clearly before you do anything with them: elderberries eaten straight from the bush will make a person sick. That is simply how they are built. Cook them, and the problem disappears entirely. The flavor that comes through after cooking is deep and rich, and not like anything from a store. Esther makes the syrup on this farm every August, a simple batch with the berries, a little raw honey, and whatever spices feel right that year. She sells it locally, and people come back for it every fall without needing to be reminded. The elderflower that blooms in spring has its own following too, in cordials and vinegars and dried herbal preparations, so one plant gives you 2 different harvests from 2 different seasons. Plant 2 varieties close together so they can cross-pollinate. Bob Gordon and Adams are both solid producers for most of the country. There is something satisfying about planting garlic in October. The garden is mostly done for the year. Everything else is coming out of the ground or has already been pulled, and you are putting something in. You press each clove down into the soil with the pointed end up, cover it, and walk away, knowing it is sitting there all winter doing its slow underground work while the rest of the garden rests. Hardneck varieties are what to grow if you want to sell. Not the soft-neck kind you find at the grocery store, which was bred for long shelf life and shipping. Hardnecks are more perishable, which is exactly what makes them a local market product. They come in purple stripes, white porcelain, deep burgundy. The flavor is more complex, more layered. Chefs notice the difference and they remember where they found it. In early summer, before the bulbs are ready, hardneck plants send up a curled green top called a scape. Cut it off so the plant puts its energy into the bulb, and you have a secondary harvest worth selling on its own at market. Harvest the bulbs in July when the lower leaves have browned, but 5 or 6 green leaves still remain. Cure them in a dry, airy space for a few weeks, and they hold well through the fall. Save your largest bulbs for replanting each year. Over a few seasons, the seed stock adapts itself to your soil in a way you can actually taste. August is the right time to order seed garlic. The varieties worth growing sell out before October. Tell me in the comments what state you garden in and which of these first 3 you are already growing or most interested in starting. Write it down. I read every single one, and I will tell you what I would begin with for your zone and your land. Growing ginger in a temperate climate feels a little like convincing a tropical plant to do something it was not designed for, and that is essentially what you are doing. It works, but it works on the plant's terms. Start the rhizomes indoors in pots in February or early March, about 8 to 10 weeks before your last frost. Keep them warm, 70 degrees or above, and in a bright spot. They are slow to wake up. Patient is the right word for it. Once they are up and the outdoor temperatures stay reliably above 50 degrees, move them out. In zones 7 and warmer, you can plant directly in the ground. In zones 5 and 6, containers are the more reliable approach because you can bring them in if a cold snap comes through. Dig before the first hard freeze. What comes out of the ground is noticeably different from anything at the grocery store. The fragrance when you cut a fresh dug root is sharp and clean in a way the stored root is not. That freshness is the whole selling point. Farmers markets and local restaurants that discover fresh, locally grown ginger tend to come back for it. If this season has already passed you by, mark February on your calendar and start there next year. Let me say one thing and then I will not bring it up again. I put everything I know about keeping a garden, the soil, the weeds, the fixes that actually hold, into a book. 2 more are coming, one for the pests, one for your pets. All of it is over at eliashomestead.shop. If you want it, it is there. That is all. The thing about lavender that most people do not expect is how little it wants from you once it is established. Rich soil actually works against it. Too much water and the roots rot. It was built for dry, alkaline, rocky ground in full sun, the kind of soil most gardeners try to improve away. Stop improving it, and lavender does very well. The first year is quiet. The second year it starts to find itself. By the 3rd year, a well-sited plant is producing full flower spikes and will continue doing so for 10 to 15 years from that same root. Hid coat stays compact and fragrant. Grosso runs larger and is the standard for anyone interested in higher volume. Cut the spikes in bud just before they fully open and hang them in small bundles in a warm, dry place out of direct light. They hold their color and scent for months. The culinary use has grown steadily over the past several years. Lavender in lemonade, in shortbread, stirred into honey. All of it starts from the same dried flower. Fall planting works well in zone 6 and warmer, so right now is a reasonable time to get plants in the ground. In colder zones, wait for spring. Here is the thing about saffron that I find remarkable every time I think about it. The most expensive spice in the world, by weight, comes from a small crocus bulb that you press into the ground in late summer and then mostly leave alone. The plant does its work in October and November, blooming after most of the garden has gone quiet for the year, and then it goes dormant and does not ask anything of you until the following fall. Each flower opens with 3 red threads in the center. Those threads are the saffron. You pick them by hand, gently, in the morning when the flower is fully open. They dry quickly, and the aroma that fills the room when you do is something worth stopping to notice. The harvest window for each flower is short, 2 or 3 days at most, so you check the bed every morning during the 3-week bloom and take what is ready. The corms multiply underground each year without any help from you. A planting of 100 corms becomes a larger planting in year 3 simply by being left alone. August and September is the window to get corms in the ground for flowers this fall. If you want a reliable source, the link is in the description. Turmeric and ginger are planted and harvested on the same schedule and grow well side by side, which is one reason people often grow them together. Start the rhizomes indoors in March in most of the country. Move outside after your last frost, and dig in fall once the foliage dies back. In zones 7 and warmer, turmeric can go directly in the ground and has a long enough season to develop a substantial root. In zones 5 and 6, starting indoors and using a row cover in the fall to stretch the season gives you a smaller but still worthwhile harvest. What most people do not realize until they cut into a fresh dug turmeric root is how different it looks from the dried powder in a jar. The flesh is a deep, vivid orange, almost startling. The flavor is brighter and more complex. Restaurants and buyers who have worked with fresh turmeric understand the difference immediately, and it shows in what they are willing to pay. Drying and grinding your own turmeric powder from fresh local root is straightforward with a home dehydrator and a blender, and the dried product holds its color and potency far better than anything that has been sitting in a supply chain. A goji berry plant does not look like much in its first year. It puts most of its energy underground, building the root system that will support it for the next 2 decades. Give it full sun and well-drained soil and leave it alone. Do not over-fertilize with nitrogen, or it will put all its energy into leaf growth and skip the berries entirely, which is the opposite of what you want. By year 2, it starts producing. By year 3, you have a shrub that fruits reliably through late summer and into fall. The berries are small, bright red, and sweet when fully ripe. Harvest by laying a cloth or tarp under the bush and shaking the branches gently. The ripe berries fall. The unripe ones hold on. It is a tidy system. Dry them in a food dehydrator or spread them on a screen in a warm ventilated room. The dried berry keeps well, and the market for it in health food stores and through direct buyers has stayed steady for years. People who seek out locally grown dried goji tend to be buyers who come back, because most of what is commercially available has traveled a long way before it reaches anyone. Echinacea grows wild in fields and along roadsides across much of the eastern and central United States. If you have ever walked a meadow in late summer and seen tall purple coneflowers moving in the wind with goldfinches pulling at the seed heads, you have seen it. It belongs here. The soil knows it. That makes it one of the easiest things on this list to establish intentionally. Plant from seed or root division in full sun to light shade in well-drained soil. Late summer is a workable window. Once it takes hold, it self-seeds and spreads slowly into a productive stand that asks for almost nothing beyond occasional weeding. The flowers bloom from June through August, and they are genuinely beautiful, which is reason enough to grow it even before you think about anything else. The roots reach harvestable size in 3 to 4 years. The aerial parts, the flowers and leaves, can be harvested from the 2nd year onward. On this farm, a stand grows in a corner that would otherwise sit idle. Locally grown echinacea root and dried flower finds buyers among herbalists and small apothecaries who have learned that what grows close to home tends to arrive fresher and more potent than what comes from far away. My grandfather had a stand of ginseng in the woodlot on the north side of this farm. He did not plant it all at once, and he did not harvest it all at once. He would walk through the woods in October, find the largest roots, take a few, and seed new plants into the gaps where he had taken something. He called it tending, not harvesting. He thought of it the way you think of a savings account. You do not empty it, you let it grow, you take what has matured, and you put something back. Ginseng needs forest canopy, dappled light, not full shade and not full sun, moist, well-drained soil with good organic matter. It is slow, 6 to 8 years to a harvestable root, and that is exactly why the price is what it is. The patience required to grow it is built into the value of what you sell. Fall is the correct planting window for stratified seeds, which makes August the right time to source them. The seeds go in the ground when the forest floor is ready, in October, and they germinate the following spring. One practical note before selling: some states regulate ginseng harvest and sale and require documentation. Check your state's Department of Agriculture rules before you sell anything. The link for stratified seeds and 2-year rootlets is in the description. Everything on this list so far needs either soil or sun or both. Mushrooms need neither. That single fact is what makes them worth understanding, because it means anyone with a garage, a basement, or a spare corner of an outbuilding can grow them regardless of how much land they have or where they live. The process is different from tending a garden. You are working with a growing medium, straw or hardwood sawdust depending on the variety, that you inoculate with mushroom spawn and then manage for humidity, airflow, and temperature. It takes some learning at the start. Once you have the process, it repeats consistently. Oyster mushrooms are the best starting point. They are forgiving with beginners, they fruit in 3 to 4 weeks from inoculation, and they produce multiple rounds from the same block before it is spent. Shiitake on logs takes longer to establish, but a single inoculated log will fruit for several years outdoors in a shaded spot. The thing that makes mushrooms commercially interesting is that fresh specialty mushrooms do not travel well. A restaurant that finds a local grower delivering fresh oyster mushrooms picked that morning has found something they cannot easily replace with a supplier from further away. That is a good position to be in. Ashwagandha is a plant that does better in difficult soil than in good soil, which is an unusual thing to say about anything you are trying to grow intentionally. Rich, well-amended garden beds are not what it wants. Dry, lean, sandy ground is where the root develops best. Too much water and fertility sends the plant's energy into leaves instead of the root, and the root is the point. Start seeds indoors in April in most of the country, 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost, and transplant out once the weather has settled. Give it full sun and resist the urge to water more than necessary. Harvest the roots in fall after the first light frost kills the foliage back. Wash them, slice them, and dry them in a dehydrator or a warm ventilated space. One honest note on zone: ashwagandha wants a long frost-free season to develop its best root, longer than Lancaster County reliably provides. Zone 7 and warmer is where it performs most consistently. Zone 6 growers can make it work with early indoor starting and season extension tools, but expect a smaller root. For growers in the right zone, this is a straightforward annual that turns difficult ground into something useful, and the market for dried ashwagandha root has grown faster than domestic supply can meet it. 12 plants, all of them real. All of them being grown right now on small pieces of ground across this country by people who figured out that the most valuable crops are rarely the most talked about ones. What they share is this: they reward attention and patience more than they reward acreage or equipment. Most of them, once established, are less work than an annual vegetable garden. And all of them produce something that a buyer cannot easily find from someone closer to home. Start with whatever fits your land and your patience right now. Calendula, if you want to begin harvesting this season. Saffron or garlic if you want to put something in the ground this fall. Ginseng if you have shaded woodland sitting idle and you are thinking 10 years out. Tell me in the comments what state you garden in and which of these 10 we have covered so far you are most likely to try first. Write it down specifically. I read every single one, and I will tell you what I would look at for your land and your growing season. If this was useful, hit the like button and share it with someone who is thinking seriously about what their land can do. Subscribe if you are not already, and turn on the bell. Stay patient, stay practical, and remember, The people who built this country with their hands knew things we are only just starting to remember.